Just Energy is a multi-billion-dollar company with an army of salespeople, signing people up for electricity and gas contracts right at your door. But as we found out, the company is also highly controversial, with suspect sales tactics, suspect employees, and a founder who appears to have misled investors about her past. What's more, as Sean O'Shea found out, regulators aren't doing much to stop it.
Terry Ann Deutman was sitting home one evening a few months ago when her doorbell rang at her home in Calgary. 3 door-to-door salespeople were on her stoop.
They said they were from Just Energy and that they were trying to give people a better rate on their gas bills.
Did they ask to look at your bill?
After looking at my bill, they said they could give me a better rate.
That sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
More than 2,000 kilometers away in Chicago, Patricia McCracklin was promised the same thing by Just Energy.
The person told me that they could save me money over my current supplier, and so that sounded good to me.
Just Energy is a $3.6 billion energy marketing company based in Toronto. The company doesn't actually produce any gas or electricity. It merely sells contracts to customers, usually locking them into energy prices for a fixed period of time.
They said I would see, a difference in my bill the very first bill I got.
Soon after signing up with Just Energy, Terry Ann got her first bill.
And did you see a difference in your bill?
I saw definitely a difference.
For the good or for the bad?
No, it wasn't for the good. My first bill was for 2 weeks, and it was higher than a month.
2 weeks, and it was higher than a month with your regular provider?
Yes.
Were you surprised?
I was kind of dumbfounded, really. How can they say they've saved me any money?
Patricia McCracklin also got a shock when she saw her gas bills from Just Energy last winter.
That bill by itself was $259, and the bill the month before that was less than $100.
After 3 months, Patricia owed Just Energy almost $1,000.
You just don't get double gas bills and something's not happening. This was out of the ordinary for me.
Terry Ann and Patricia are just 2 of the nearly 5 million customers across North America who signed contracts with Just Energy. The company is run by Rebecca MacDonald, one of Canada's richest women.
Rebecca MacDonald is a hard-pressing, driven individual.
Hard-driven and rich. She lives in this mansion in Toronto and has some very powerful acquaintances in high places. She was even appointed to be an economic advisor to the federal finance minister. But all is not necessarily as it seems with the woman or her company.
The moral of the story is investors need to be careful of situations where it's just too good to be true.
Anthony Scilapati is one of Bay Street's top forensic accountants.
Where you have charismatic leaders, where you have significant debt, where you have questionable accounting.
Just Energy's problems begin at the door when their salespeople come knocking.
Their salespeople often say, hey, this is guaranteed savings, or you're going to save on your gas bill.
David Collada is the executive director of the Citizens Utility Board, a consumers watchdog based in Chicago.
But in practice, what we found is that the vast majority of these offers are money losers, so not a particularly good deal.
It's here in Illinois where Just Energy has run into heavy flack for its sales tactics.
We've seen cases where people who, because they don't speak the language, they don't know exactly what they're signing up for, or senior citizens who are in early stage dementia and even have Alzheimer's. The main types of complaints we've received about Just Energy have all been around deceptive or misleading marketing practices.
There are other tricks Just Energy's sales staff has been accused of using, such as forging signatures or pretending to be connected to the local utility. That's what Terry Ann Deutman says happened to her.
They basically made me believe it was an umbrella effect, that they fell into the umbrella of, the local provider.
The local public utility.
Yes,
Which you trusted.
yes.
Consumer complaints were so bad, Illinois' Attorney General sued Just Energy for consumer fraud. The company had to fork over $1 million to pay back customers.
At the end of the day, it's really about, hey, they promised me savings on my gas bill. Next thing I know, my bill skyrocketed, or I never signed up or switched to begin with, but somehow I'm now a Just Energy customer.
That $1 million payment to consumers who'd already signed up didn't stop the company from signing up Patricia, who fell nearly $1,000 into debt to Just Energy. She tried to find out why her bill was so high.
It was at that point that I took my paperwork out and read it, really read it for the first time, and found out that Just Energy has the ability to charge any customer what they want. I found out they're charging me almost double the going rate.
Patricia says when she asked for a repayment plan, Just Energy refused. Instead, in the middle of one of the worst winters on record,
They threatened me. They told me that they were going to cut my gas off. That's pretty scary that someone can threaten you in the middle of February and March that they're going to cut off your gas.
But it's not only Illinois where complaints against Just Energy have piled up. Both the states of Ohio and New York have fined the company, and the Better Business Bureau has given it an F rating.
An F rating with the Better Business Bureau is as low as it gets.
Rick Borski is the Ontario director of the BBB. His agency has received 572 complaints about Just Energy in the past 3 years.
The complaint activity has been consistent. We don't see any reduction in the numbers. There's been government action in Ontario as well taken against these companies, but and some of the fines have been fairly large, but I think it's just a cost of doing business for them. They just continue.
In fact, the Ontario Energy Board, which regulates the energy business in Ontario, has hit the company with $570,000 in fines over the past 3 years for breaking its rules. Back in Calgary, Terry Ann says that after discovering her bill for 2 weeks of gas was more than what she would pay in a month, she called up Just Energy.
You get through to somebody at the company,
Yep.
and they tell you what?
They told me that they would have to get someone to call me back about my bill.
Did anybody call you back?
Nobody called me back.
Terry Ann quickly changed her account back to the local utility.
How many times have they been back at your door?
Okay, I think I've counted 6 times.
6 times.
Yes.
After paying off her debt, Patricia in Illinois also returned to the public utility company.
Just Energy is not some big company in Illinois. You know, the reason why you go with Johnny Come Lately is because they said they're going to save you money. If you told me, we can't guarantee we're going to save you money. In some instances, we may charge you double. And said that to me in plain English instead of these 2 pages where I got to get a spyglass to read it. Do you think I would have changed?
Next, an unusual choice for a door-to-door salesman.
They hire a convicted fraudster. It's a little bizarre. It's like hiring a pedophile to run a daycare center.
Just Energy has signed up millions of customers by going door to door, which has generated allegations of making unfounded promises of savings. But it's not the only way they've landed customers. The company also has been accused of using a method called slamming.
Slamming is the process where you switch someone to a service that they didn't authorize.
Slamming happens when an employee in a large company is coerced or tricked into signing over the company's energy contracts, even though they don't have the authority to do it. And it all happens without the company knowing.
We have received through the years a significant number of complaints around slamming about Just Energy.
One case involving allegations of slamming occurred in New York 4 years ago at the Hampton Inn Hotel near Times Square. This phone call occurred between a Just Energy sales rep and a member of the hotel's staff.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon, Darren. How are you today?
Okay, sir.
I'm good. Thank you for asking. My name is Selma from Just Energy, an independent energy supplier. So, Darrell, are you the individual responsible for entering into and securing agreements like this 5-year price projection for your business?
Yes.
With that yes, the hotel staff member handed a 5-year energy contract worth more than $1 million to Just Energy. The hotel employee, it turns out, was part of the custodial staff, not someone authorized to switch contracts. The hotel's energy costs shot up by an estimated 70%. New owners of the hotel terminated the contract with Just Energy after they realized what had happened. Just Energy denied the slamming claim, and a New York regulatory body ruled the hotel's new owners failed to prove it. Just Energy has been accused of slamming in Canada, too.
We're very heavy users of energy. We're a manufacturer, so we, for somebody like Just Energy, we're a big fat cherry.
Frank D'Angelo is a flamboyant Toronto businessman who runs a soft drink company. In 2008, Just Energy approached D'Angelo's son about signing over the energy contract to his father's bottling factory.
They told him that it would save a ton of money, and he's a bright guy, and he tried to do something good. Instead, he didn't because he was manipulated. He agreed, but he didn't sign because he's a smart guy. He knew that he had no power to sign. There's only one signature in this castle, and that's my signature. And they never got my signature. They pushed it through. They knew exactly what they were doing. They picked a kid who was naive, and they manipulated him.
Signature or not, the contract was in place. It wasn't until 2 years ago that D'Angelo himself discovered the contract with Just Energy.
What happened to us is what happens in most companies when there's many employees and many layers is as a piece of paper floats around, everybody assumes that it's okay.
D'Angelo estimates he paid $1.5 million more than if he'd been with the local utility.
I had a heart attack when I saw the amount of money that we were burning every month. It was ludicrous.
D'Angelo sued Just Energy in a case that's still before the courts. That's when he discovered one of Just Energy's sales staff involved in his matter was a man named Glenn Lancaster.
So when I Googled him, I was shocked that he had been convicted. He is a convicted fraudster.
In 2006, Lancaster was sentenced to prison for his role in 3 different fraudulent companies that scammed millions from victims. Lancaster was working for Just Energy before he went to prison, and Just Energy hired him again when he came out. What's more, he still works for them.
They hire a convicted fraudster. It's a little bizarre. It's like hiring a pedophile to run a daycare center.
In fact, Lancaster has been named in 2 other lawsuits against Just Energy involving allegations of slamming. The Canadian Medical Association and a food company in Belleville, Ontario, fingered Lancaster as the salesperson who changed their energy contracts without proper authorization. Both lawsuits were settled out of court.
What it says to me, to have a convicted a fraudster being your sales rep, and their tactics are very high pressure and misinformed. It's all based on misinformation, because if they gave the proper information, nobody would sign a contract.
Next, taking a closer look at the Just Energy books.
To a layperson, is it a little bit like having a second set of books?
Second or third or fourth.
Just Energy has left consumers and companies feeling ripped off. Now, it's investors who are getting worried. Allegations of deception swirling around Just Energy go to the very top, to founder Rebecca McDonald.
If you have a director or an officer of a public company who's falsified her credentials, or if she's telling stories about her background in order to give herself credibility in the marketplace, and those stories are not true, that's a very serious issue.
Joe Groya is one of Canada's leading securities lawyers.
A regulator is going to look at that and say, this calls into question whether this person is fit and proper to be running a public company.
MacDonald has claimed to have attended medical school. She's claimed to be a doctor. She's even claimed to be the daughter of one of Yugoslavia's energy ministers.
They should look and consider who she is not. And she is not a self-made person who came to Canada independently and quickly became a successful business person. That is not true, simply not true.
Mike Jankovic is Rebecca MacDonald's first husband. They met in Yugoslavia in 1974, back when she was called Ubavka Mitic.
Ubavka, at the time, told me she was a medical student completing her medical degrees at the University of Belgrade.
So she said she was a medical student?
Yeah.
It was only after he paid to bring her to Canada and they were married, Jankovic says, she told him the truth.
And you find out upon her disclosure that she's been lying to you?
And no education, no medical degree.
So this is not somebody who went to medical school?
No.
Or became a doctor?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, was her father ever the Minister of Energy?
To the best of my knowledge, I can say that the answer is no. He never told me that he was Minister of Energy, ever. She never mentioned to me that her father was Minister of Energy.
And her father was?
An inspector, mining inspector.
MacDonald has characterized her first husband as having an agenda against her. Still, it's not just her past that might contain a bit of fiction. By 2012, Just Energy was no longer doing well, weighed down with almost $1 billion of debt and losing money. That's when some sharp-eyed accountants noticed some odd things about the company's financial statements.
Very basic expenses were not counted by them, and therefore they showed this artificial profit.
As one of the top forensic accountants in Canada, Al Rosen investigated Just Energy and determined it was using an unregulated form of accounting to bury various costs and minimize losses.
To a layperson, is it a little bit like having a second set of books?
Second or third or fourth. Management was getting their share of profits, but based on their definition of profits, the shareholders were getting their money back, but it was their own money or it was borrowed money.
In fact, Rosen wrote a report detailing his concerns about Just Energy.
What were you saying in that report?
We're saying to sell your shares and run fast.
Get out.
Get out.
Not a good investment.
Not a good investment.
Despite it all, MacDonald's credentials haven't suffered. Linked with Canada's finance and foreign affairs ministers, sitting on the Canadian Pacific Railway Board, and attracting former politicians and judges to her own company's board. We wanted to ask Rebecca MacDonald about the allegations about her company. MacDonald wouldn't sit down with us, but the company's co-CEO, Deborah Merrill, did.
Critics have accused your company of underhanded sales tactics, sleazy tactics to try to get people to sign their name to a contract.
I'd not heard those accusations, so
Really?
nobody said that to me, no.
This is news to you?
No, but nobody said that to me. I think it's...
Well, to your company. I mean,
No, I would disagree with that. I think...
You would disagree that there's a view that your company is doing things at the door that it shouldn't be doing.
No, I'm saying that mistakes happen, and we take them very seriously.
There have been accusations that you use what is described as slamming to try to get customers. What do you say about that?
Said every single customer is verified on the phone. So if for some reason they say, no, that's not what I wanted, or no, I didn't sign up, or no, that wasn't what I intended to do, then we do not enroll them.
And then there are the issues of Just Energy salesperson Glenn Lancaster, who went to prison for committing fraud, and whether Just Energy is using unregulated accounting to mislead investors.
Glenn Lancaster, what does that name mean to you?
He's a sales rep.
And back in 2006, he went to jail for engaging in these kinds of scams that rip people off. He went to jail. What's this guy doing working for you now?
You know, like I said, we make sure that every single person's doing what they should be doing. So I think that if somebody's made a mistake in the past, not necessarily an indication of their future value.
There were two accounting firms that looked at Just Energy. They said the adjusted AMBIT formula that you guys were using to represent your financial statements was an unfair method of showing your company's financial statements that misled investors.
We are a publicly traded company who gets audited by Ernst & Young every year. So everything we do is audited and approved.
I can't let you go, please, without asking you about Rebecca McDonald. There have been a lot of allegations that she falsified her resume, said she was a doctor of medical school and wasn't. What do you say about that?
I won't talk about her personal life, what happened 50 years ago or whatever. I have no interest in talking about it, actually, but I can tell you, for me personally, it's been a pleasure working with her.
Just Energy isn't the only energy marketing company, and it's not the only one facing criticism. The Energy Distributors Association of Canada, the lobby group for local utilities in Ontario, wants the contracts of energy marketing firms banned. But energy regulators aren't moving in that direction. Kareem Carson is a vice president of the Ontario Energy Board.
And yet this company that keeps lying to consumers over and over and over and over and over again, you find multiple times they're still in business. What are they doing still in business?
You'd have to direct that question to Just Energy. I don't know.
But I'm saying you're the regulator. You have the authority to say, you're bad guys. You're not in business anymore. So based on all these thousands of complaints and these hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines that you've already levied, like, what's it going to take for you to say you're out of business?
The board reviews all allegations of non-compliance with respect to the specific facts of that case. It is important that consumers protect themselves and read the materials or find out more information about what's being offered at the door.
Just Energy might not be the only energy marketing firm to be wary of, but Patricia McCracklin says it should be placed high on the list.
I can easily see how people can fall into that trap because they get you with the keyword savings, discount, we have great customer service, we're gonna save you money. Now, when you hear that, you better run because I can tell you, it's not gonna happen, not with Just Energy.
Next, battling the elements and the past.
We're going to let it all out and let it die here and hopefully go home a better person.
$59. And the bill the month before that was less than $100.
After 3 months, Patricia owed Just Energy almost $1,000.
You just don't get double gas bills and something's not happening. This was out of the ordinary for me.
Terry Ann and Patricia are just two of the nearly 5 million customers across North America who signed contracts with Just Energy. The company is run by Rebecca McDonald, one of Canada's richest women.
Rebecca McDonald is a hard-pressing, driven individual.
Hard-driven and rich. She lives in this mansion in Toronto and has some very powerful acquaintances in high places.
Just Energy is a multi-billion-dollar company with an army of salespeople, signing people up for electricity and gas contracts right at your door. But as we found out, the company is also highly controversial, with suspect sales tactics, suspect employees, and a founder who appears to have misled investors about her past. What's more, as Sean O'Shea found out, regulators aren't doing much to stop it.
Terry Ann Deutman was sitting home one evening a few months ago when her doorbell rang at her home in Calgary. 3 door-to-door locking them into energy prices for a fixed period of time.
They said I would see, a difference in my bill the very first bill I got.
Soon after signing up with Just Energy, Terry Ann got her first bill.
And did you see a difference in your bill?
I saw definitely a difference.
For the good or for the bad?
No, it wasn't for the good. My first bill was for 2 weeks, and it was higher than a month.
2 weeks, and it was higher than a month with your regular provider.
Yes.
Were you surprised?
I was kind of dumbfounded, really. How can they say they would save me any money?
Patricia McCracklin also got a shock when she saw her gas bills from Just Energy last winter.
That bill by itself was $200.
For salespeople were on her stoop.
They said they were from Just Energy and that they were trying to give people a better rate on their gas bills.
Did they ask to look at your bill?
After looking at my bill, they said they could give me a better rate.
That sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
More than 2,000 kilometers away in Chicago, Patricia McCracklin was promised the same thing by Just Energy.
The person told me that they could save me money over my current supplier, and so that sounded good to me.
Just Energy is a $3.6 billion energy marketing company based in Toronto. The company doesn't actually produce any gas or electricity. It merely sells contracts to customers, usually places. She was even appointed to be an economic advisor to the federal finance minister. But all is not necessarily as it seems with the woman or her company.
The moral of the story is investors need to be careful of situations where it's just too good to be true.
Anthony Scilapati is one of Bay Street's top forensic accountants.
Where you have charismatic leaders, where you have significant debt, where you have questionable accounting.
Just Energy's problems begin at the door when their salespeople come knocking.
Their salespeople often say, hey, this is guaranteed savings, or you're going to save on your gas bill.
David Collada is the executive director of the Citizens Utility Board, a consumer's watchdog based in Chicago.